Yo, what's good, E7 fam? Sue, aka Pat here, back with another video. And in this one, we're going to be blazing because we're going to be talking about the Guilty Gear collab hero, Jacko Valentine. I'm going to give you my thoughts on her, go over her stats, her skills, where I think she's going to be used, what kind of builds, possible stat ranges, things like that. We'll also be talking about her artifact here at the end. So we're going to jump into it now by looking at her S3 animation like we always do in these videos. And I am super excited to talk about the fact that they decided to actually get her theme song Perfection Can't Please Me, which if you've never heard it, song is an absolute bop. Everything in Strive's OST is just absolutely phenomenal. And if you've never listened to any of the Guilty Gear music, I highly recommend you do so. It's really, really cool. Really awesome pop slash metal sound on a lot of the soundtracks. So let's just jump into it.
Piping hot, popping like popcorn. Can you hear the bells ding ding? エビちゃんドライバー君がプシケ始めましょうか
Alright, so yeah, really awesome song. I just can't get around much of a bop that is. Like, honestly, all of the tracks that have female vocals in Guilty Gear Strive, which is either Jacko's theme, May's theme, or Milia's theme, just super, super awesome. Love listening to those tracks. Moving on to the actual character itself, Jacko is a fire warrior of the Taurus zodiac symbol. Definitely would not have pegged her for this. I really thought this was going to be a soul weaver, a mage, or a ranger, but she is a fire warrior of the Taurus zodiac symbol. So she shares the stat line with characters like Euphine as well as Straze, and we could kind of extrapolate where we can expect her numbers to actually end up falling. For the attack, she has 1228, which is quite high. We can probably realistically expect Jacko to have anywhere between like 3500, even like 5k attack. It's kind of like the spread of where we're at with that attack range usually. She has 5784 health, which is quite low for a warrior, so she's going to be a little bit on the squishy side. I'm probably realistically between like 9 and 14k, maybe a little bit higher, depending on what stats you decide to sacrifice. 109 speed is slightly above average to average, so to speak. It's like 1 point above where I consider the average is like 108 or so. 553 defense. That is quite low. She's going to, again, be very, very squishy. She will make up for it again, though, with that speed, because we're probably realistically going to be in like 230 to 260 speed range, right? Critical hit chance, 23%. Obviously, that's a nice bonus. Crit hit chance is usually a big limiter for a lot of players who don't have a lot of gear, so that's always nice. 165% critical hit damage as well. Again, another big boost. So she is going to be a hard-hitting unit with a decent speed range, not really an opener, right? Again, 230 to 260 speed range, most likely. Bit on the squishy side, but at least she'll hit hard. So she's going to be kind of like a glass cannon DPS is what you can infer from the actual stat line. No effectiveness or effect resistance, so we don't really have to talk about those. Imprint release is going to be effectiveness for the team, and imprint concentration is going to be attack percentage. And I do think that is going to be pretty huge because some of the characters' moves actually do hit fairly hard, so you are going to want to have quite a lot of attack on the character so she can do her job. So, taking a look at her S2, it is a passive Trick or Treat. At the start of battle, it grants the Chain of Chiron to the ally in the back row for 2 turns. After an ally attacks, when the target is stunned, increases the combat readiness of all allies by 15%. This effect is activated after all of the attacker's effects have occurred and can only be activated once every 3 turns. The Chain of Chiron is a buff that gives the person that has it, after attacking, has a 25% chance to stun the target for 1 turn. Chain of Chiron cannot be dispelled. Essentially, what this means is that whoever is in the backline on Jacko's team gets to start the game with 2 turns of Abyssal Crown, like a maxed out Abyssal Crown. And if they end up stunning a character or attacking a stun character, they will CR push the entire team by 15%. Essentially, it's kind of like they gave the backline character, made Chloe's passive, and then also gave them an Abyssal Crown for 2 turns. That is the simplest way I can explain the passive to you. It is, in my opinion, a very, very good passive because there are certain characters that you want to pair with her that are going to be very deadly. The first one that comes to mind is obviously Dizzy. Dizzy is a character that is in the Guilty Gear collab as well that you'll probably be wanting to pick up if you are a Guilty Gear fan. Dizzy has fallen on some hard times. She was originally one of the best characters in the game when Guilty Gear first came out. She was amazing. This might bring her back into prominence, at least maybe in a Guild War setting, because Dizzy has an AoE attack that already stuns. You get to double up on that with Chain of Chiron. Obviously, Bellion is another character that is very, very good with this style of effect. And even a character like Rem can be very, very potent with this as well. Obviously, you can build a composition where it's like, Troublemaker crows it to protect the backline. Jacko gives the backline Chain of Chiron. By the way, my backline is Bellion, which is a character that's very difficult to deal with already. Does good damage, has strips, and now I'm giving her a bunch of AoE stuns on top of it. So yeah, Trick or Treat seems like a really interesting passive from team composition building aspect. I really like it when they introduce characters that introduce new sorts of teams. Obviously, like there might be some kind of like really strange team you can make with like Bellion, Bad Cat Armin, Jacko, maybe like Troublemaker crows it, things like that. Like that is like a really interesting way of building compositions with all those styles of characters. And obviously, Abyssal Crown and the CR push from Maid Chloe are never bad. Stun is easily the best debuff in the game because it's essentially like saying you skip the player's turn. It's almost like taking an extra turn. It's really, really strong. Very, very good passive. Doesn't add survivability, which is what we're usually looking for in passives, but it's still a very aggressive passive overall, and I really like it. So now let's move on to her S3, which I called correctly in my previous video, which is that it is Forever Elysian Driver, which is her command grab from Guilty Gear Strive. You acquire 2 souls upon use, and it has a 3 to 4 turn cooldown depending on Malagora. It increases the attack of Jacko for 2 turns before she attacks the enemy by swallowing them up with a Jack-o'-lantern. When the enemy is defeated, it grants Jacko an extra turn. It penetrates the target's defense by 50%, and when the target has a debuff, the damage dealt increases. Wow. Like, holy crap. Wow. This might be the best single target move in the entire game as far as damage goes. So let's break it down. Increases the attack of Jacko for 2 turns before she attacks. That sounds awfully familiar, right? That's Remnant Violet's S3 Massacre. He gets a 2-turn attack buff before he uses it, and that move also penetrates the target's defense by 50%. And you remember, that move was like a 1.3x attack multiplier. If this move has a 1.3x attack multiplier, it is already as good or better than Massacre, and Massacre already has the potential to one-shot most of the heroes in the entire game. So already, very, very strong start for Forever Elysian Driver as a move. That is the floor. And then if you kill somebody, which it's already on par with one of the best single target moves in the game for assassinating a target, you're going to get an extra turn. So the way that Jacko's play pattern is looking to be is you're going to come in with her, she's going to take her turn, kill somebody, take an extra turn, and then you're going to probably use her soul burn to give her her survivability mechanic, but we'll talk about that more with the S1. So already really, really good. And then we add on to the move even more. It has a clause where it gets more damage based on if the target has a debuff. So it has kind of like a pseudo Spectre Tenebria damage amp on it, and that is already one of the best S3s in the game. That damage amp is really, really strong. So we'll have to see the numbers, but like if this is like 1.3x attack or better, this is probably like the strongest hitting single target S3, at least from a PvP perspective, in the entire game. So yeah, this is really nuts. Oh, by the way, this move's a 3-turn cooldown. Remnant Violence is a 6-turn. So you can throw out twice as many of a move that is stronger than Rylet's S3 in a given game. This is really nuts. Like, very, very strong move. Like, it doesn't seem crazy because it just seems very simplistic. Like, oh, just an attack buff and it's a hard-hitting single target move. Take an extra turn, right? Blah, blah, blah. I don't think people realize, like, just how insanely strong this move actually is. And so if Jacko is going to be played, I expect people to go very glass cannon with her, go like that 260 plus speed Straze route where she's just straight glass cannon. I'm going to make my Jacko as fast as possible. She's going to come in, she's going to Elysian Driver you, and then move on to her extra turn where she's going to be taking advantage of her S1, which is Throw Servant. This is what I expected her whole kit to be based around. They kind of made her into an assassin rather than like a setup puppet character like she is in Guilty Gear. So once again, we have changed the Guilty Gear characters so that they are a completely different playstyle than how they actually are in the original source material. So yeah, Throw Servant attacks the enemy with a servant with a 30 to 40% chance to stun the target for 1 turn depending on Malagora. After attacking on the caster's turn, when the target has a debuff on it, she will activate Dust Attack as an extra attack. For those of you who are not familiar with Guilty Gear, Dust Attack is one of the buttons on the actual game. There's a punch button, a kick button, a slash button, a heavy slash button, and the Dust Attack button. The Dust Attack functions as a universal overhead or a universal launcher, which is basically like sets them up for a combo, depending on what version of Guilty Gear you are playing. So essentially, this is like, hey, I hit you with the Servant and I stunned you. Oh, I stunned you. I get to use the Dust Attack, which is the launcher or the combo starter, and she goes into her actual like air series, like her Dust Attack series in the air from the game. So yeah, really, really cool nod to it. It's very, very strong S1 because essentially you are getting 2 S1s for the price of 1 on top of getting the best debuff in the game, which is stun at a very good clip, I might add. 40% is quite a good rate for a single target S1 stun. Now, where things get really crazy is it has the soul burn effect of consuming 10 souls to increase the effect chance to 100%. So this character has some effectiveness on it. That soul burn is going to essentially say target player loses their turn, which is very, very frustrating. If you've played against Peyra at all, you're probably well aware of how potent her S1 soul burn is on a character that fast, and I do expect people to try and build Jacko blazing fast as they can to take advantage of killing a target off the rip with Elysian Driver and then going into the extra turn and soul burning Throw Servant so that way they can do a ton of damage to a target, stun it, and then just chill in stealth for 1 turn because Dust Attack does give you a 1-turn stealth after it is used. So yeah, pretty simple character to understand, nothing like crazy. Very simple, but very, very strong, very effective. I do expect this character to see PvP play because it's essentially the same logic that people use for Speed Riot, right? I'm just going to play a really fast, bursty character, blow up somebody in 1 hit, and try and secure the game from there. Jacko obviously lends herself very, very well to aggressive compositions and even some pseudo-cleave compositions. So, yeah, again, I do expect Jacko to see quite a bit of play in PvP. Moving on to her artifact, Jacko's Symbol, it increases the effectiveness of all allies by 10%. If the target has a debuff when the caster attacks with a single attack, that is a single target attack, increases the damage by up to 12 to 24% based on the artifact's level. This artifact skill effect can only apply to 1 hero within a team. Thank goodness, because man, this thing hits really, really hard. For perspective, Portrait of the Saviors is one of the best damage dealing artifacts in the game, and it gives plus 20% damage if the target has 50% or more health. And I believe a Symbol of Unity, which is like the second best one, I believe is 16%. And 16% is where you're gonna be with Jacko's Symbol at plus 15, I believe. It might be 18%, somewhere between 16 and 18, depending on it. So that's where most of you guys are gonna be. So you're basically looking at something that is almost like a better version of Portrait of the Saviors for characters that either have debuffs in their kit or are commonly paired with debuffers. This is going to give you a lot of extra damage. Like, note that it says extra damage, not attack percentage. So it gives you an extra 24% after the total calculation of the move. So again, this is going to really make your characters hit very, very hard. I think if you're going to play Jacko, you probably are going to want to get a couple copies of this and a couple copies of Jacko to really just ramp up her damage. This having 24% extra damage and them expecting you to play Jacko's Symbol on Jacko means that I don't have high hopes for Elysian Driver's damage numbers. I think if it's like 1x, it's probably still nuts because it does have the extra damage amp from the debuff, and then on top of that, it has the penetrates defense, and it also gives an attack buff. And then you're probably wearing a this artifact, which will again multiply the total damage at the end. It's a lot. Like, this character just has an absolute metric ton of offensive power. I was not expecting her to be this offense oriented, this crazy, this insane. So yeah, that's my take on Jacko. Again, really simple, effective, and straightforward character, and I do expect her to see play, and I do think her artifact is good. I will also have up today the Awaken update patch notes. I'll just be going over those super in depth. It's going to be a really long video. I'll link it down in this video's description if you want to talk about it. If I missed anything, as always, let me know down in the comments below. Hit me up on Discord if you want to chat about anything related to Epic 7 or even Guilty Gear. I'm always down to chat Guilty Gear as well. Enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I will catch you all later. Bye-bye now.